really check your history and yourself.
Stop playing politics with my punani. Stop playing politics with my punani. Hey, 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 Republicans. I see you called on your fellow man. All dicks and no nuts. Then you rush to call me a slut. I'm standing up for what is mine. Call me the rib, but I'm really the spine of this whole great nation. Ain't gonna put me back on the plantation. No, stop playing politics with my punani.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. I cannot believe we are at episode 20. like sometimes I'm like, what? Yes, we're at episode 20 of Punanny Politixxx, and I am so excited to be here with you tonight. And you know, over the weeks, I've been doing a little different green screen situation. So I know you're like, what? Whose flag is this behind you? Or what is going on? I should lean this way, right? What is going on? So that is the flag of Zamunda. Because tonight or today, I mean, I think it started last night. I think they did like a late night, you know, let it go kind of thing where Coming to America was premiered. So it's on Amazon Prime, and I think it's like in a few theaters. I think actually in Queens here, they did like a drive-in in Forest Hills. They did like, you know, because of course, Eddie Murphy, Queens, all that kind of stuff. So they did the drive-in and all that kind of stuff so people could see the movie. And I know there's like a few theaters. I'm not trying to go to the theater right now, but you know, it's happening out there in the world. But Coming to America has begun, and I'm gonna talk more about that later. But yes, behind me is the flag of Zamunda, because why not? Yeah. So I'm really excited, you know, to have Rosa Clemente here with me tonight. We're doing the redo from last week, but everybody was here last week. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully, you know, everybody's back this week because, you know, we want to be able to share all the goodness that is Rosa Clemente with everybody here tonight. But before we get into that, as always, I want to give a little bit of the news of the week. So again, it's not like good news, bad news. It's just kind of like, what the hell's going on? So I feel like there's some weeks, honest to God, where I'm like, oh, you know, there's stuff going on, but it's not like, you know, a whole hell of stuff. Like tonight, I know there's going to be things I'm just not going to be able to talk about because I don't know, this week, a lot of stuff went down or is going down in process. It's all going down. So where do we begin? Oh, we're going to begin in the great state of Texas, because listen, like, are you serious? These people are trying to reopen 100% on March 10th. 100%. They are getting rid of the mask mandate. They're lifting the mandate. I've spoken to many of my folks in Texas, and they are like, no, we're still wearing masks. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but like, seriously, I don't understand. Or maybe I do understand, because I think at the core of it all, I mean, this is just me. It's just me. There's a very high rate, right, of Black folks in Texas with COVID. And, you know, these folks don't care about us. And so there's a part of me that just feels like it's just all a plan, you know, the continued, dare I say, genocide. You know what I'm saying? Because it's ridiculous that they're doing this. So it's not just Texas, it's also Mississippi. And this week, in one of the press briefings around COVID, the CDC director, Rochelle Walensky, she cautioned, of course, against the rollback, saying, I'm really worried about the reports that more states are rolling back the exact public health measures we have recommended to protect people from COVID-19. And she continued, please hear me clearly. At this level of cases with variants spreading, we stand to completely lose the hard-earned ground that we've gained. We stand to completely lose the hard-earned ground that we gained. Like, look, I want to go out just like everybody. Like, I want to go out. You know what I'm saying? I want to dance with my people. I miss dancing with my people so much. Like, yeah. But look, can we? Yeah, Texas, that just, like, you're still really in a disaster area. Like, people's houses are still not back. Just because it's now, I don't know, 80 degrees or something crazy in Texas doesn't mean that people's roofs have suddenly repaired on their own, right? So anybody out there, you got folks in Texas, you know, if you're in Texas, if you're watching from Texas, please keep your mask on. Please keep your mask on. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a bit of a shit show, though, I have to say, because, of course, there's people that don't want to wear masks. And so when they are, you know, allowed not to, you know, freely, lawfully, I guess, the business owners that want people to wear masks inside of their establishments, I'm sure are going to be coming up against people who are like, well, I don't have to wear a mask and it's not mandated. And like, come on, that's not fair. If you're a business owner and that's, you know, you're trying to protect your customers, but I'm telling you, I'm just waiting. You know, we already have enough, you know, Karen's gone wild videos. There's more to come. There's more to come with this. So Texas, please take care of yourself. Please, 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 please. And staying in the southern region of the country, we're going to hit Georgia because, as we know, now that Georgia turned blue, all these Republican Georgia legislators are trying to, of course, suppress the vote. Of course, because that's what they do, right? It's like, oh, y'all won? Okay, now we up in this ante. We're really going to stop y'all. So all these things are starting, meaning they're starting to put legislation in place or trying to put legislation in place that would end automatic voter registration, would ban drop boxes or for mail ballots, eliminate the broad availability of absentee voting. And the bills would restrict early voting on weekends, limiting the longstanding civic tradition of souls to the polls, which is in which Black voters cast ballots on Sundays following church service. So listen, I know I'm not going to get all churchy and say, what a mighty God we serve, but what a mighty God we serve. Listen, I know these people are trying it, but there's some other things at play right now. You know, like I don't want to get all woo-woo, but y'all know I'm woo-woo. Y'all know I'm woo-woo. And so I know that these folks are trying to do the same old that they've done before, but we're in a different time now. We're in a very, very different time, just energetically. It's just different. So, of course, we can't talk about Georgia without talking about our girl, Stacey Abrams. And in the words of our dear sister about Georgia State Republicans, she says, rather than grappling with whether their ideology is causing them to fail, they are instead relying on what has worked in the past. Of course, that is, you know, cheating, stealing, lying. It says, instead of winning new voters, you rig the system against their participation and you steal their right to vote. I think this is the point that people are missing. It's like, you're doing all this, you know, stuff to try and stop us from voting. But at the end of the day, you're stopping everybody from voting. And I know people are like, no, well, you know, they're only in certain neighborhoods. But I'm telling you, like, much as you hate to believe it or don't want to really believe it, we're really one people. So if it happening to you, or it's happening to me, rather, it's happening to you. It's happening to you. That's a whole other conversation. But just know it's not just Georgia that is doing this. So Iowa, Arizona, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, they are all working above the ground. It's like not a secret to suppress the vote. So if you're in any of these states, Iowa, Arizona, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, you know anybody that lives there, we got to stay vigilant because 2022 is around the corner. And it's really about 2022. We're not looking at 2024. It's about 2022. So know what's going on, folks, and get into it, as they would say, as I would say. Also, I'll tell you, it's been a week. This week, the George Floyd Policing Act of 2021 was passed in the House. So I have like mixed feelings. Welcome to the city. I have mixed feelings about all of this. But I'm just going to tell you quickly what the bullet points. The George Floyd Policing Act of 2021 will, or strives to, work to end racial and religious profiling, ban chokeholds and no-knock warrants, limit military equipment on American streets and require body cameras, hold police accountable in court, investigate police misconduct, empower communities to reimagine public safety in a more just and equitable way, change the culture of law enforcement by training to build integrity and trust, ignore transparency by collecting data not ignore. See, that's a slip of the tongue. Improve transparency by collecting data on police misconduct and use of force, and to stop sexual harassment in law enforcement custody. Wow. That's a lot of things. And I don't know. You know, I had a conversation with a friend this week, and you know, the prefix in reform is re, right? And so re suggests like going back to something that, you know, maybe I guess was like something that you wanted to be a part of, right? You know, a return or something like that, right? But we understand that policing comes out of slavery, right? It comes out of the overseer. So what are we reforming? Like, I don't understand. And so while I appreciate like the effort, like, don't get me wrong, like I don't disapprove of people trying to make things better. Like, I just don't really know if this whole system can be reformed. Like, reformed to what? You know, that's why people are saying defund the police. That's why people are saying abolish the police, because we need to really reimagine or redo, like, you know, what this thing is, because taking it, I don't know, back or forming it, I don't know, Play-Doh, I don't know what, but I just don't see how that's going to work. And this is ambitious, because really what we're trying to change is people's minds, right? So all of these things, like, I don't know. But again, I'm not saying that we shouldn't try. I'm not saying that people shouldn't go out here and try and create legislation. But I guess that's just how I'm feeling. I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna have some more conversations. That's what I'm gonna do. But that is, you know, the whole George Floyd Policing Act of 2021 is online. You can read the whole thing. I just didn't have time to run it all down for y'all today, but it's out there. Definitely research it, you know, see what's going on, see what's happening in the name of George Floyd. We should be mindful, you know, of all the things we do in the name of our fallen soldiers. Coming around a little bit, talking about COVID and talking about reopening. So here in New York, there's the lovely Apollo Theater asking us, telling us to be well. But here in New York venues, meaning music venues, I think bars, things like that, are set to reopen on April 2nd at 33% capacity. Of course, you know, people will still be required to wear masks. Again, because it's 33% capacity, you know, I guess people are trying to figure out the social distancing thing with that. They're saying 100 people indoors, 200 people outdoors. And that's kind of what is happening. So again, I have so many thoughts around this. So being an artist myself, right? I know that if you open a venue at 33% capacity, especially places where like bands are playing, where you're looking, you know, you're making your money off the door. You're only getting 33% of people. You're not getting paid. You're not getting paid. And it's already hard enough for us to get paid. And then you're talking about not even half capacity. I know people really want to get back to this live music thing and but I just don't think people really think about the artists. Like, people just think about wanting to hang out. And so at 33% capacity, like, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work on our side of things. Yes, we'll be able to go out, blah, blah, blah. But certain venues, it's just not feasible. So one of those venues, or at least one of the venues that the New York Times spoke to, was the owner of the Bowery Ballroom and Mercury Lounge. And they were just saying that, basically what I'm saying, that the economic realities of holding shows with such audience limits means that not all venues will reopen in April. That's number one. They won't all open, even if they're legally allowed to. And again, the owner of Bowery Ballroom and Mercury Lounge was saying that that social distance requirements mean that shows held at the venues would be capped at approximately 20% capacity, which is untenable. So it's not even good for the business people. So I'm not really sure what this all means. You know, I know New York, we're here, you know, we're known for having like fabulous outdoor summer events. And maybe on the outside, I can see it maybe working out. I know, like I said, last week, Lincoln Center is opening, like they're opening 10 new outdoor venues and rehearsal spaces. But like, I can tell that Lincoln Center has thought about this. You know, they're collaborating with other performance venues like Weeksville and BAD and the Caribbean Cultural Center, you know, to make sure that everybody has a space to produce work and you know, support the artists. But some of these clubs, I don't know how that's going to go down. But again, I'm as tired as everybody else. I want to go outside. I want to hug my friends. But as I said, we might be over COVID, but COVID is not over us. So we just have to be mindful. All right. So on some more happy news or uplifting news. Last night at like midnight or something, I don't know, I was up at one of my ungodly hours and I was like, oh, wait, it's March 5th and my boyfriend's released some music. So if you haven't heard, Bruno Mars and Anderson .Paak have teamed up and they started a group called Silk Sonic, and they released a song today called Leave the Door Open. It's a complete, beautiful throwback vibe. I really hope that they'll reach out to El DeBarge and do some sort of crazy slow jam remix and get him on there because there's so much of his vibe on there. But the whole album is dropping on May 18th, and Bootsy Collins is actually a part of it. Bootsy Collins, they said, is narrating the record, which I think is pretty awesome. And check out Leave the Door Open. If you just want some good feels, I kind of feel like we need some good feels right now. And that's what it did for me. So you can check that out. And then finally for the, news, as I mentioned, there's our young Eddie and Arsenio, and there's our grown Eddie and Arsenio. So coming to America, like I said, it's out now. It's on Amazon Prime, and I think it's in a few theaters too, but I'm really excited. I think when the show's over tonight, I'm just gonna, bust out my Amazon Prime and check it out. That'll be my nightcap for tonight. So again, I feel like in these times, it's heavy. There's a lot of heavy stuff going on. And I really believe in laughter and pleasure and finding spaces to have those things in this time, because I think we can quite easily burn ourselves out from being stressed out. And we don't want to do that. We know better. So take time for yourself, take self-care time. If that means, watching a movie, listening to some music, making love with your partner, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Get it in, get it in, and enjoy yourself. So to close this little section, I will say, I said last week, but here I am this week. I was I'm hoping that this show won't necessarily become every week I'm talking about somebody that passed away. But this week I do want to say, rest in power to Vernon Jordan. I'm not going to give you Vernon Jordan's whole bio resume. You can totally Google Vernon Jordan. There's a whole, there's all kind of obituaries about him, but he was a civil rights activist. And then later he was called the CEO Whisperer. I'm telling you, it's a lot. You might know him if you're old enough that he was, part of the Clinton administration transition team in 1992 and 93. He's got a long history, storied history. So he passed away at 85. Rest in power, Vernon Jordan, and rest in power, Bunny Wailer. Wow. So not all the Wailers have transitioned. Bob, Peter Tosh, and Bunny. Oh my God, that picture of Bunny on the left, that's such an awesome, look at that elder right there. I know now he's an ancestor, but what a beautiful man. And, he was 73. Sadly, he had a stroke and he passed. But, what brave, brilliant, beautiful brothers were Bob, Peter, and Bunny. You know what I'm saying? And, reggae icons, and contributed so much to the world, not just musicians, but activists, all three. And man, they're somewhere in the ether, sending their good vibes, creating some good, glorious music together, I'm sure. So rest in power to Bunny Wailer and to all the family, of both those people, both Vernon and Bunny, at this time. So Yeah, that is our, our news, That's what's going on. I can't believe I did it all in the amount of time I did it in, because I was looking at all the things I had and I was like, oh God, this is going to take forever. But I'm glad it didn't. But tonight, as we move forward, tonight is the last quarter moon in Sagittarius. We are still in Pisces season. And so we're going to I'm going to bring you the forecast. Of course, Moist Paula bringing it to us all the time. So here we go with the moon forecast.
Tonight, the waning moon reaches its last quarter phase, a beginning of the end of sorts. As the sky becomes darker in the coming week, we may find ourselves thinking in the wake of Mercury's meeting with Jupiter, it's now or never. Whether reflecting on our intentions of the new moon in Aquarius last month, or recalling something which may have been set in motion on the new moon in Sagittarius of December 2018, we now find ourselves in the home stretch of these respective cycles, and it will begin to be apparent where things are reaching completion or where we may have fallen short of our intentions. Sagittarius brings feelings of optimism, increased confidence, and a sense of humor to this lunar phase, even as we may be facing feelings of urgency or an unwillingness to let go of something, which now becomes apparent as unworkable. This can be a time when we may be inclined to force an issue. If so, being conscious of whether or not we are being met with resistance will reveal the truth about the reality of our situation. If the energy is flowing, pushing through the finish line can yield great satisfaction. If our situation is hopeless, we may find ourselves colliding with an immovable obstacle. Just as the light of the moon withdraws in the coming balsamic phase in preparation for the new moon in Pisces, so too might we withdraw in some senses. The last quarter moon kicks off the winding down of our lunar cycle, inviting us to go within and become more quiet and still. With 3 planets in Pisces, this is a great time for dreaming at any hour of the night or day, whether sleeping or awake. We all need to get enough rest and reset at this time, particularly now that Mars has moved into Gemini and Mercury is picking up speed. All systems are a go by the time we reach the new moon, new week, and begin a new cycle. This moon forecast was brought to you by Moist Paula at Zodiac Soundtracks. Welcome to the last quarter moon in Sagittarius.
Yes. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, all my beautiful Pisces. And as I said, it is Pisces season. We got one more week, I think, because next week is the new moon in Pisces. So again, welcome to the last quarter moon in Sagittarius. So moving on, I am really excited. I'm super excited to bring this next beautiful sister to the stage, because as you know, everybody comes to the stage because we miss the stage. So coming to the stage, I have Rosa Clemente. Hey, Rosa.
Hey, girl, how are you? I thought you were on the West Coast. I didn't know you were in Queens.
Oh, I'm actually in Brooklyn.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn. I was just saying that they're showing that movie in Queens because Eddie's from Queens.
Right.
Yeah. But I am here. I'm in Brooklyn. And it's been, I'm here in Brooklyn.
I'm here in Albany, New York, like I do want to, well, you finish. I live 1 mile away from the governor's mansion, which I hope by this weekend there will be hundreds, maybe even thousands of women coming from across the country, but we'll see. But right. I live 1 mile, so I might jump in and
jump in. Exactly. Yeah, that's a whole thing. Yeah. Well, before we get into that thing, I just want to tell people who you are, just in case they don't know. And I truncated the bio. I'm just going to do a little bit. But
yeah, I am always telling people, don't read that.
I'm gonna read just a little piece, not a whole thing. So Rosa Clemente is an organizer, political commentator, and independent journalist, an Afro-Puerto Rican born and raised in the Bronx. She has dedicated her life to organizing, scholarship, and activism. Rosa was the first ever Afro-Latina woman to run for vice president of the United States in 2008 on the Green Party ticket. She and her running mate, Cynthia McKinney, were to this date the only women of color ticket in American history. She's currently completing her PhD at the W.E.B. Du Bois Center at UMass Amherst. And most recently, Rosa was a producer on the film Judas and the Black Messiah and was instrumental in getting both Fred Hampton Jr. and his mother, Akua and Jerry, on board. Welcome to the show, Rosa Clemente.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I want to tell you the very first show I did back in August, I was dedicating, I'm trying to think if that was a reason, but yeah, I was dedicating the show at that time to women who were killed by the police or killed or irreparably harmed, due to like homophobia, transphobia, so we were doing all of that. So my very first show, I was of course talking about Breonna, and I was talking about no-knock warrants, and I showed a clip of Mama Akua in the Fred Hampton documentary talking about when the police came in and what she heard and, all of that. So it's interesting, I'm like, and here we are now. And I watched the film, obviously, and I have to say, and I didn't really want to start here with the film, but I just have to say, watching that part, it's like anything else. It's like, it's coming, like, it's going to happen, but it wrecked me. And I can't even imagine having to watch that reenacted. So like, bless you for even, for being able to get them on board and to participate in, making sure that the story was told properly. But I'm telling you, like watching it, it just made me think about her and about, Fred Hampton Jr. and just having to sort of see that again. So, yeah. Shall we? I didn't really want to start there, but since we're here, how did you come to know them? And it's funny because I feel like that's another space and place I feel like I may have met you, because I kind of remember when Fred Hampton Jr. was like, when he came out and he was going around the country and talking. And so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, thank you for having me, and thank you for being understanding. Last week, I have these migraines, and they don't come as much anymore, but when they do, they're knocking me out for the day, So thank you. I wanted to say, because I also like I'm a pop culture kind of fanatic. Mm-hmm. There were, there's two things around like just pop culture that I found fascinating. So first, Vernon Jordan, when the whole thing was going down, where obviously Bill Clinton took advantage of Monica Lewinsky, his power and all that, I would urge everybody to watch the 5-part documentary. This is the first time she sat down. And she is the only person in all of that male power in the White House, all that cared about her was President Clinton's secretary. Her name is Betty, African-American, worked for him or the family for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And Vernon Jordan.
Wow.
And he sat down to tell what he told Bill Clinton finally. And I was like, yeah, at the end, it's still a Black woman and a Black man that showed this young white girl, compassion and unity. And, Vernon Jordan was like, I went up in there. And it was not a good day between me and Bill, as he said. That Harry Belafonte turned 94, and that's, wow, incredible.
Absolutely.
And the last thing was, I am very ready to watch this Meghan and Prince Harry.
Girl.
Because I'm like, I wanted to say, Meghan, girl, you in danger. Like, like I got all, and I'm spilling all the tea. She even called them the firm, which followed, the British royal family and all that. First, I'm like, watch The Crown, not because of them, but it tells the whole truth about them. And like every episode, how god awful people tied to the Nazis, like crazy things. And Meghan's like, no, I'm good. I'm in Cali. I'm about to. And in the clip I saw, she says, did they think we were going to keep staying quiet? I was like, So yeah, I know why they had to leave. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't want another Princess Diana, which would have been just Meghan's a whole different person. We know it's racialized. Most people are like, whatever, we don't care. All I'm saying is, girl, you in danger. Have some bodyguards that you know.
Listen, Rosa, I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine because I was like, I watched The Crown and I was like, ooh. And when I saw that pop up with Meghan and Harry, I said, ooh, they just giving us more Crown episodes. This is
Sunday is my day. I'm gonna be playing over all on a loop.
But yeah, girl, like you said,
our interview. Oh, this is gonna be, yeah,
it's gonna be something. But you're right about that. You're right about that. She needs like FOI at her side.
I know. You know what? I was like, yeah, and I'm talking like Black security, like real brothers, sisters, non-binary folks that really got that girl. Like everybody's got to go through a background check to be around her now.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. But yes. When is that coming on? I know we shouldn't be pumping, but that's coming on. It's coming on Sunday.
I'm watching it. No, they're going to keep releasing the clips. But to get to back, I do follow pop culture, and sometimes I'm like, oh, this is more than pop culture. This is like politics. Like she may be bringing down what everybody thinks the Crown and all that craziness out there, which I still don't understand how that have any role in that. But yeah, so I was living in Brooklyn organizing with the Malcolm X grassroots movement. By then, the Malcolm X grassroots movement have probably put together, I would say 8 of our, or 5, 6th annual Black August celebration of hip hop and freedom fighters, where Malcolm X grassroots movement used, artists came together to talk about the freedom of political prisoners of war or exile, and our ancestors like George Jackson, and then of course Assata Shakur. And Fred had been incarcerated and he was about to be released. And in that time was when I started doing more work around, or the hip hop organizing was like that became something and people were working on that. So it was just an exciting time in Brooklyn, poets and Erykah Badu, Jessica Care Moore, Dead Prez, Talib Kweli, like all of that is happening. And we're all connected to the artists as political folks and cultural folks. And one was like, yo, I know you do college gigs. And I said, yeah, I had just finished managing this group called the Welfare Poets.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, yeah, I kind of, I'm digging this. And I had started to tell a couple people like, yo, it's okay for us to speak. And that could be part of our organizing work too. And Fred came out, and a month after that, maybe 2 months, we went on this tour, Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, where Fred and M1 and me were going around the country. Fred would speak. I was more organizing the tour. So I've known Fred for over 20 years, but I wouldn't have met him if it hadn't been for M1, who was very close to him. He was, M1 is organizing. He had come from Chicago as an organizer as well, an artist. And everybody should know the history of M1 and really how Dead Prez really bought into our spaces. Like there are not only political prisoners, the children of some political or people that were assassinated by the state are there. So we did that. So I've kept in contact with Fred and all of that. And it was like 3 years ago. 3 years ago that Shaka Keen reached out to me and him, along with dope other activists and organizers, but Charles Keene and Ryan Coogler and Ava DuVernay had put together this Blackout for Human Rights. And they were like, yes, we want cultural workers and artists, but we need the organizers. And they invited me and some other organizers. And we've been down for probably like 7 or 8 years now that Blackout has been around. And Shaka's like, can you get a contact with him? I was like, for what? And he's like, right. We're making this Fred Hampton movie. I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I don't think that's going to work. I was like, they've been approached many times from many people in Hollywood to make this movie, and they've always said no. So it took a couple months for me to even convince Fred. I'm like, look, let them just come out to Chicago. I'll be there. And we went out there, me and my husband went out there, Ryan and his wife, producing partner Cindy, Charles King from Macro, Shaka King. And yeah, it's funny because when we rolled up at the house, I said, he always runs a little late. He'll be here in about 20 minutes. But before we went in there, I said, listen, I said to all of them, don't mention no Chicago rappers. You're not leaving in an hour and a half or two. We will be here for 5, 6, maybe even 7 hours. And we were there for 7 hours.
Wow.
And like, you know, Fred brought all the concerns that people have, like the script's already written. Who are you talking to? Why haven't you talked to us before? What? And Fred's breaking it all down. And then at one point, Ryan mentions Kanye, and I was like, no. And I grabbed my husband's knee. I was like, oh no. And I just looked at Shaka like, everybody just be real quiet. And Fred expressed what his concerns were, especially with particular hip hop artists like Chance the Rapper, Kanye, and you know, that have gone a totally different way. So I was like, oh no, the meeting might be over, but it wasn't. And then it was a lot of bringing people together. Fred, Akua, other Black Panther cubs, Black Panther elders, they were not down with it. It took like a good year and a half of trust building that had to happen with Chairman Fred and then Shaka, Charles and Ryan, you know, and I just kind of kept like, we can struggle through this. It's like, this can happen. But the main thing was that when we got to the house, I had realized, oh, this is where your father grew up. Mm-hmm. And they have been trying to save the house from being foreclosed on. Mm-hmm. And I did tell Ryan and Charles and Shock, I'm like, one of the things we're going to have to do is save this house immediately. And that happened to the extent that they were able to kind of restart the GoFundMe campaign. Ryan Charles must have called some people and were like, drop that money so that the house could be saved. And then I was expressing to Fred, I'm like, oh my God, your father's like middle school diplomas on the, like here, like you have to frame that. Yeah. And people who know me, I'm an archivist. Like I could for the rest of my life and be perfectly content. And I was like, that picture, no, where's the frame? This is your grandmother's china from like before your father was born. And Fred was explaining to us how the city was coming at him. Mm-hmm. All that being said, it was a beautiful process. In terms of, again, love and struggle, in terms of having to see Fred at certain moments, Fred would be like, this is not the battle right now. Okay, like, all right, I'm gonna let that one go, but I can't let that one go. And it was 2 days before the film started shooting in Cleveland. It got shot on October 2019, ended around mid-December 2019. And it was 2 days before the filming started, and they had still not made a decision. And, you know, folks call me and I was like, if he didn't say no yet, he'll be there, but he needs to be on the set every day. And he was. I think the days he wasn't on the set, Mama Cool was able to go a couple days on the set. And I know that they were there for the filming of the assassination. I wasn't there for that. I felt I got real lucky when they asked me to come. I was there with the church scene, which is that scene. I mean, I've never been on a set like that big. And Daniel came and did that. It was 16 takes of that. I mean, and when he first came out and did it, like 9 a.m., I'm sitting next to Charles King. We look at each other. We start crying because you're seeing Daniel. And it's like the spirit of all the Black Panthers, the young, is like in this church right now. Yeah. And all the extras in the audience were people from Chicago, elders from Cleveland, Detroit. It was, and to see Daniel embody that, I was like, oh my God, like the speech pattern, it's so surreal. And then also I ended up being on the set when Chacha Jimenez, who's the founder of the Young Lords, was on the set. So he was telling us things that I didn't even know. Like I didn't know that Chacha was one of the last people to see Chairman Fred and Deputy Mark Clark, you know. He was like, I was with Fred, and then 12 hours later, I was, and 2 days later, a pallbearer at his funeral, and got to meet the young brother. His name is Nicholas Velez, who plays Chacha Jimenez. So I was like, I came out at such a good time. Personally, I wouldn't have wanted to be there for the assassination scene at all. And I know there were concerns, and Fred was like, no, you know, we're going to be here for it. And they were. Yeah.
Yeah. I was watching a recent interview that you did, and you were talking about, and something that I've thought about often as well, the fact that, you know, the Mama Akua, that she was in that room pregnant, 100 bullets came in that room, and she's alive. And so is her son. And as you said, you know, if you don't know that the ancestors are looking out, you better know now, because that was nothing but somebody looking out.
And there were other Panthers there, you know, and the fact that all of them didn't die, but the fact that, you know, Mother Comrade Akua was right next to him.
Exactly.
You know, they weren't trying to let her live, and they definitely didn't want his son to live. But 25 days later, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. was born. Yeah. You know, and so I'm like, yeah, that was some divine intervention to keep other people alive. But man, you know, we all know how it ends, and it's. I watched the movie twice. Once before the final edits and the completed, and I'm gonna watch it one more time when my husband's ready to watch it. But I've had a lot of people tell me, like, I can't.
I honestly, if you weren't coming on the show, I don't know if I would have watched it. And it, because it was hard. Like, I remember, I mean, I even think about when when Spike did the Malcolm X movie. Like, I cried at the end of that, and I knew what was going to happen.
I cry all the time. I'm like, I know what's about to go down. But, you know, I think also that we need to use the movie to show what state violence looks like.
Yes.
Like, William O'Neill was not the only infiltrator.
Right.
All these movements were infiltrated. Movements now are infiltrated. What does the state repression look like? What counterintelligence was an organized state, systematic killing machine. I mean, that's what COINTELPRO is to me, either killing you by assassinating you or imprisoning you until you die. And you know, let me say that we got to get Mumia Abu Jamal out right now. Like, he has COVID-19 and congestive heart failure. People in Philadelphia chose Larry Krasner to really be the person that's finally like, yo, he has certain powers to get the state to release Mumia. Yeah. And we cannot let our political prisoners and prisoners of war die. We can't. Like, the strength of a movement is when all your political prisoners are out.
Yes.
And they're not. And they reach 70, 75, 80, right. COVID. Like, and it's really what people have to understand about the wickedness of this government is that they love not telling the history of their evil, demonic ways. They always want Black and brown people to look ahead and don't look back. Mm-hmm. But you won't let our political prisoners and prisoners of war out because you're vengeful. And that would also be victories.
Yes.
Every piece that we people move to get out, that's a people's victory. But Mumia has to be. Everybody go follow Mike Africa, the Move family. They're going to be doing a huge event tomorrow online, and we have to get Mumia out. He cannot die behind those walls.
Yeah, and I'm going to say also about Mike Africa, if you have not checked out the documentary about the Move bombing, I think it's on HBO as well.
40 years prisoner, and Mike is on the podcast now.
Okay. Yeah. So please check that out. You know, I mean, I did a piece on Move, I think like recently, because they'd like apologized or something recently. And a lot of people that were watching my show, they were like, we didn't even know that happened. And that's what I'm saying. There's so many things that have happened to us that like the general public just doesn't even know. They just
speaking about the Move bombing and the Black mayor who knew they were going to get bombed, who now says he's sorry. Yeah, like 30 years after you killed children, burned them alive, and almost beat that entire family to death and still imprisoned them for 40 years. I mean, Mike Africa's mom had him in jail.
Right.
Even though she was pregnant. She had that baby. That's when they knew. Like, you see the sister and then you see his father come out, and you see Mike, like, wow, for 40 years you didn't have your parents, and now they're here and doing work already.
Hello. Yeah. It's I'm always, I mean, I'm not amazed. Like, nothing that these people do shock me, but it's like this perpetual cycle or idea that we are the ones that are violent, but everything that is coming down is violence that is against us. Like, every single thing. And even us, even some of us believe that we're the ones that are violent, because that's the systematic stuff that has, gone into us, and that's a whole other show. But yeah, it's like always, it's like, if you really look at it all, like like that one part in the movie where William O'Neill's talking about, we got these guns, and Chairman Fred's like, what are you doing? Like, what I'm saying? Like, in the beginning, like, we're not going there yet. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just do what, stick to the plan. And as you were saying also, it's like, that's kind of how you start to know, like, what are people talking about? When you're talking about one thing inside of a movement and somebody else starts talking about something else, then you got to kind of look, a little bit deeper at folks, and who's in, who's in your space, who's in your field. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot a little bit, because the whole reason why I originally reached out was because when Keon Harold's son was attacked at the Arlo Hotel by that woman, Mia, I can't remember her last name right now.
Yeah.
But I can't remember her last name right now. I have it right here somewhere, but Ponsetto, that's her name. And how after she like gave Gayle King the hand, which, Lord, I had to clutch the pearls on that. I was like, Lord Jesus, what are you doing? But then she came out and was talking about how she was Puerto Rican, so she couldn't be racist. And so after that, you did a whole live about that. And I was like, yes, like, I felt like, can we please talk about this? Because there is, and always has been, I feel like, in some spaces, like a real fracture between, Black folks, and, as we now say, Latinx folks, and people not wanting to be called Black, and, really trying to separate themselves from that. But we also have a rich history of, like, being in movement space together and all these other things. But we're in this interesting moment now, I feel like, because I just saw also too this thing that was happening with Zoe Saldana around the Dominican community. And so can you talk about that a little bit? Because I was just like, every time people do things like that, I mean, that happened with, and then, with folks saying that they're, people of color, women of color in particular, and they're not, whether they're claiming to be Black or Latinx, and they're just not. So it's like, I'm like, what is this in this moment? And why do people think that that's just going to be okay? It's kind of like when people say, well, I don't know, like, I went to church and I repented, so now I'm not really this, I'm not really a crazy. It's like, no, like, come on. But anyway, let me not go there.
Yeah. So I, first, as a self-identified Black Puerto Rican, I'm not claiming her. So I need to see some papers. Where's your people from? But it wasn't just her. We also had to deal with this Jessica Krug that for years pretended she was Afro-Latina, and then she's a white woman from somewhere, and then she's taking spaces in the academy and fellowships from deserving, obviously, African-American women and Afro-Latina women. And then, we had right after the poinsettia girl, who I was like, Gayle looked like she wanted to like strangle her, because I was like, you just being mad disrespectful too. Then we had this latest was her name is Natasha Bannon, who for 15 years was pretty much in every Puerto Rican circle on the island and in the States, a lawyer. who pretended for 20 years, 15 years, 20 years that she was Puerto Rican. Somebody did an investigative piece. And yeah, that wall came tumbling down in the movement spaces because she's been up in everything.
Wow.
And the way particularly Puerto Rican men responded were like, but she still did good work. And then I'm like, she went to a CIA leadership retreat. The CIA. What are you talking about? Even if she's not an informant or trained by the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and all this, she did what COINTELPRO also does, which is cause disruption and discord. Yeah. So now everybody in Puerto Rican circles, whether you're independista or about mutual aid or the more that's growing for colonization to finally end, and how people on the island are responding and being more self-determining. And then we here in the diaspora, what we could do, what you've done now is now people are paranoid.
Yeah.
And so all of that is all anti-Black behavior, right? And the system of it is white supremacy. But I do feel that when it is someone that pretended or got into our movements as a Puerto Rican, a Black Puerto Rican woman, I need to say it, and yeah, she has caused so much hurt right now. And somebody was like, do you want to get on a call with her for restorative justice? I was like, no. First of all, I don't believe everybody gets restorative justice.
Yeah, hello.
Come on now. That's the thing now. You could do stuff that can break a movement, and I'm going to get on a call with you. Go away. I never want to see you again. Ever. Don't come to the Bronx. Leave. Right. You in danger, girl. Leave. Go back to Kansas where you were born. No, I don't. But because you're now. It's not about an individual person. It's about a collective movement. It's about people. It's about us. You putting us back on our freedom struggle around Puerto Rico, and also as a lawyer, you broke every ethical rule. You shouldn't be a lawyer anymore either.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Do you at this time believe that she was somebody who, because I know you are about the struggle of liberating Puerto Rico so that they're not a colony of America anymore, that they can be their own independent self. Do you think that she was sort of put in place to thwart that progress and be a part of sort of getting people to sort of calm down or not really be about trying to make that happen?
No, she was very much about self-determination, Puerto Rico being, free. Okay. And the thing that also, me and my other Boricua sisters, when we were all talking about this, it was you could have been white and still been in some spaces.
And that, yes.
We work with white people who are anti-imperialist. Yes. White people talking about white privilege, but talking about white supremacy. We have them as elders like David Gilbert, Laura Whitehorn, Marilyn Buck. These people gave their lives for the free all a lot. Well, Marilyn Buck is not, but Susan Rosenberg. These people were white people that were anti-imperialists, the Weather Underground. Yes. All that. We're not ones that just be oh, you white, you can't come in. Although now I'm more we got to know where you're coming from. Right. If you want to say you're Puerto Rican, what municipality? And if you ask me what a municipality is, then you already out. You already know you're lying. So I was you need a checklist from now on, your vaccination card, and we are checklist.
Right.
And we just have to be more mindful in our movements, but we can't let this whiteness all of a sudden be reversed. We're the ones that exclude people. We should be excluding people more. Yeah. If we're about that deep, deep work. But I don't think she, yeah.
Well, I feel it's funny when you say that, because I feel exactly the same way about just be who you are, be true. I'm going way back to Rachel Dolezal, right? And how she was, all up in the NAACP talking about she was Black, running the organization. It's you know what? There's white folks in the NAACP. All up and through the NAACP. So why couldn't you just be yourself? and
Can I
just
tell you,
being an ally.
I met her 6 months before it broke that she was a white woman.
Mm-hmm.
One of my friends was teaching out there and brought me out to speak. So when you go, anybody that does gigs, artists or whatever, you usually have a dinner the night before.
Yeah.
And a small group of Black and Latina women in Eastern Washington, you know,
Right. Yeah.
Washington, not DC.
Right.
And she came and, you know, we were talking about Black Lives Matter and talking about my lecture the next day because she was a professor in Africana Studies.
Right. Right.
And he's like, yeah, I don't think Latinos or Latinas should be in Black Lives Matter. And I was like, what? I was like, well, I am. Like, I'm actually in Black Lives Matter chapter right now. Like, what are you talking about? You know, and it was a debate. So that night, the sister that brought me up, was staying at her house and we walked, you know, and I go, yo, she's white, right? And my friend's like, you think she's white? And I was like, hey, y'all don't know she is? And they were like, my friend was like, no, but people here have been talking about it. I said, for how long? She's like, girl, she's the president of the NAACP. I was like, no, she ain't. I was like, she's white. So my girl's like, how do you know that? I'm like, come on, I grew up around these type of white girls. Like, yeah. In the suburbs or the city, like there's that white girl that you're always like, damn, why you up in everything all the time? And the next day I did the lecture and she asked her question again. And then I go back to LA. My friend is out there and my friend's like, yo, have you seen the news about Rachel Dolezal? She's like this professor. I'm like, from Eastern Washington State. I was like, girl, that's who I was talking about when I went out there, and I had kept her like business card.
Wow.
And everybody was like, yo, you said that when you were out there. I was like, I didn't know that it was a secret like that. I just was like, Eastern Washington State. Yeah, she's white with dreadlocks. Like, I've seen that.
Right.
In Washington State. It's like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because obviously I didn't know her, don't know nothing about her until the story broke. But as soon as I saw her face, I was like, why did anybody think she's Black? I mean, I know we come in various shades, styles, you know, all these things. But like, as soon as I heard her, I listened to her, I looked at her, I was like, ooh, people were in deep denial about her.
Yeah, there's something about it still. Like, it's the energy, and we'll be like, I see you, white girl, or it's all right. But now you're telling me I can't be in BLM and you're like policing Blackness. That's what got me at that dinner. I was like, she was policing like who gets in. And then she's like, but phenotypically, I'm like, phenotypically what, dude? You're lighter than me.
Right.
And I'm light, like, but I got my African features. Yours, that's not African.
Yes. It's just been such a moment. I feel like and I said this at the top of the show, and I've been saying this, like, I feel like this time that we're in right now, things are moving very quickly. And what I mean by that is spiritually, things are moving quickly, like things that we might not have seen happen for long periods of time. People are getting, you know, caught up, meaning like people getting found out, you know, things are happening very fast. And I think, you know, going back to what Stacey Abrams was saying about the voter suppression happening in Georgia, it's like these folks are trying to use these same tactics that they've used for centuries, like, let's be real, to keep us from voting and from being a part of the process. But it's like, it's not going to work. You know, like that's just how I feel. Like, I just feel like there's something shifting in a way that, like, all these things and the ways in which they keep trying to do what they did before, it's like, it's not going to work this time. And I don't know what that is. I could just be, you know, but I don't know if you feel that way about what you've been seeing happening on the landscape of things. Cause I feel like, wow, we would have never seen that happen so quick, you know, but now maybe it's because everybody's got a phone in their hand. Like, I don't know. It just feels different.
Well, yes, you know, the ability to be like a citizen journalist because you have your phone, you know, right, and share information. For me, though, I don't think the electoral political project is savable anymore in this country. And at this moment, you know, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been there for 6 weeks. Why have you been debating a stimulus bill for 6 weeks when you have the votes? Like the majority wins here.
Yeah.
Why do you need a Republican? Why after 6 weeks? Why after all the work that particularly Black women, African-American women did to save America from itself?
Yeah.
And in fact, I was listening to Reverend William Barber with the Poor People's Campaign, and he was already like, Harris, we need to tell her like immediately, there's a reason you're there.
Yes.
And part of that was, you break the tie. So why are you still wanting any of these white supremacists, half of them who were in on the insurrection, because now they're releasing the text messages going back and forth, and Republicans double down and Democrats always want
some kumbaya, like
across the aisle.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you, AOC and Bernie Sanders. Bernie, who, right now, but even a $15, that's not even it doesn't even lift you out of poverty.
Hello. And that's the thing. I'm like, these people are so disconnected. Yeah. Like $15
an hour. You have to have a wage. Every municipality, every state needs to have a different wage tied to what a living income in that community looks like. If I have to spend $3,000 on a 3-bedroom apartment, right? Really, people should be making 30, 35, 40.
Yeah.
I mean, and just in general, obviously, capitalism needs to go. We need to be working on some cooperative economics. What does a system that does not extract, and now extracting to the point where the climate is, the globe is collapsing.
Yeah.
You're like, why are you trying to be nice to them?
Yeah.
We put you in there to be nice.
Yeah.
We put you in there to make a difference right now. And if people don't understand how COVID is ravishing our elders, Native Americans who passed down the language, gone, Latino intergenerational families wiped out, African American men, women. I mean, like, yes, it could have been started in a lab, and it could have been the elaborate plan to get rid of all of us, but it's working.
Yeah, hello, right,
It's working,
right.
So
at this point,
I'm so frustrated because, right now what we're really talking about is our humanity.
Yeah,
and as much work as I do around lifting Afro-Black, Latino, Latina, Latinx identity, and I love that work, and for me it is a core of who I am. But also my work might have to exclude who you are, Afro-Black, Latina, Latinx, if you come to the table like a Zoe Saldana. Like, listen, you are Black. Like, you're Black from the Dominican Republic. Stop it. Because ain't nobody looking at you as nothing else but Black. Exactly. And I just like, yes, I will address that. And I want to, but I also want us to understand that this visibility and representational politics, okay, so now it's Black and brown people doing the work of white supremacy. Like, didn't we learn that with the Obama administration? Like you said at the beginning, how you were talking about reform. Re means a prefix to redo something. Mm-hmm. No, that's why I'm not even with reforming the police. Yeah. I'm obviously down with defunding the police. Yeah. I'm down with abolishing the whole damn system. Yeah. Because none of it is working. And it's certainly not working from a place where most congressional people, except for maybe 20 of them, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, a couple others, and no senator, they're all millionaires. Yeah. So for you to argue that you don't want to pay somebody at McDonald's a livable wage, and then and it made me think when you said about that prefix. All of the things we're demanding is what a government's supposed to do. But now we are doing it block to block, mutual way. And that's important. That's self-determining work. But also, we do pay taxes. The government is supposed to provide the basic needs under the United Nations law of human rights, clean water, I don't even know if people are paying attention to what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi right now. Their entire water system is broken.
See,
okay?
I didn't even know that.
Right, because that's not, this mainstream media and even left progressive. Like, why y'all still talking about this Agent Orange dude? Y'all are the ones giving the dragon his breath. Meanwhile, we're here doing what we can to help our people, building to building, block to block, mutual way, self-determination. But yet we shouldn't have to always be doing this. We shouldn't be the ones that have to send, people in Texas, like, who have no electricity. Now we're going to send bottled water to Jackson after Flint. Like, there has to come a moment where movements are like, yeah, y'all might be playing us, and we're going to have to get down and really talk about shutting down the capitalist machine. But it's got to be led by workers. And if workers are incentivized, if the Black women and single white women, who are the women the most that work in restaurants, if they don't have a livable wage and have to live off tips, which is really, does a dude come in or somebody come in and like you, so they'll give you $2 or $3, or decide they don't like you or not. Like, all of this is inhumane. And so for me, I think we have to go beyond now. It is important, as you're saying, they're trying to strip rights. That's of course, that's what they do. Yeah. Because we add people to the roles. But then the other thing that has me thinking, and I think I just got this book, I really recommend it. We Do This Till We Free Us. It's so amazing. Yeah. I'm gonna put that. Yeah. So Mariama Kaba has been doing this work, and in this book, which it hit the New York Times bestseller in 3 days, because I think there's now a consciousness shift of seeing younger people, but also us that have been doing the work. Like, none of this is reformable anymore. Yeah.
Well, I was telling, in the summertime, when everybody was in the street and everybody was protesting, and it was interesting because I was saying to some of my friends who are not here in New York, live in other places. So they were, we're grown folks, but they were looking at it as like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Like, it seems like it's unorganized, and it doesn't seem like, and I was like, well, why do you think it's unorganized? And the reason why, people have a very narrow view of what movement looks like, right? So we come from a space of like, there's one woman, one man, one or a couple of people, and those are the people that you look at, and those are the people that you follow. And I'm like, these young people are not doing that. They know, they read the books, they know what that is. So we can't do it that way anymore. And I said, and I think we have to be able to like let young folks do strategize and do what they're going to do in these times. And of course, be there to support, to be of help, to share, what I'm saying, to, of course, just not, just to lend knowledge, what I'm saying? Be like, because we've been here, we know what this thing is, but also be able to step back enough to be like, but you know what? I think y'all are going to move the dial, the pin in a way that that we weren't able to do. And that's great, because that's how it's supposed to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's intergenerational. Like, our movements are intergenerational. Yes. Like, there's nothing you're going to see in any of our movements that don't do that. So I do sometimes with younger folks, I'm like, yo, you got to be humble sometimes. You don't know everything. Right? Like, the people of my generation, the hip hop generation, and I've seen how a lot of brothers, when finally these young folks were like, non-binary people are going to be part of this. We are trans, we are queer, we are houseless, or all of that. Like, we're not going to depend on the one Black male Latino figurehead anymore. I've seen the reaction from a lot of brothers where I think what it really is that they think their manhood is being taken away. And my whole thing is, well, isn't like masculine behavior already toxic in general? Like, we say, for me, I'm like, every man, woman, and binary person in this country has patriarchy in them, because patriarchy is in the system.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
So when I started seeing brothers being like, why do we have to talk about gender and all of that? I'm like, what are you talking about? Because we didn't do what we were supposed to do. We didn't move the needle on that, you know.
On that, yes.
It required me to be like, wait a minute, why haven't you? Why haven't you employed that? It's not enough to just talk about women on the women panel or to have LGBTQ people at the LGBTQ panel. And it threatened a lot of brothers in our generation. And it's like, you know, there's a lot of toxic behavior, but that also exists with young people. Yes. So I think our role should be, I'm going to be part of movements probably in a different way. My daughter will find her own way. But ultimately, I want to do what was done for me, where elders took me under their wing, would tell me like, good job, you're not doing enough. That was wrong. Don't ever do that again. Read this book, then holler at me tomorrow.
Right. I'll shade of that. Yeah, I'm very thankful, you know, over the summertime. I was like, you know, I have been in these streets for years and years and years, and give thanks these young people are still in the streets. I was like, I might not be out there with you, but I'm with you. I was hanging out my window, banging my pots as people were coming down my block. But I felt like, you know, I needed to figure out another way to be in this and to have a voice in it. I was like, I don't know if my place is in the street at this time in my life. I was like, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to be a part of it. Like, this is how I was raised. Like, I don't know anything else. You know?
That's interesting that you said that, because this summer we had so many here in Albany, which Albany in this area is a pretty brutal place economically and police-wise. It's the heart of New York State government, which means it's the heart of corruption. And, you know, just people in Albany they're like, yeah, I just saw Cuomo walking to the bodega. Like, I don't really care. Right. Cause they're like, all of y'all suck, the whole Capitol and all that. Right. You never see people from Albany ever going to a protest when people come up to protest. It's interesting. But seeing my daughter, and I literally like physically stepped back, and I was like, oh my God, they got this. This is great. You know, because I was feeling bad, and I was like, I'm not healthy and I might not be able to run from the cops. I still went into a situation where there was like pepper spray at us and all this. But when I saw the young people, and I just said, you know what? You're always a movement. You just, maybe I'll contribute in another way. But I think also we have to have time for us that have been doing this for 20 or 30 years. We have to begin to process these 20 and 30 years. We have to write our stories, and we have to be okay. Like, one of my homies was like, yo, I try to go out there, but I'm 50. My knees are hurting. I'm like, that's fine. Just give us the money. They're going to do that. And then we're going to be here like, okay, here's the interview, here's the donation, here's the organization and stuff. We all contribute. And the more you grow, the older you get, you should evolve. You know, and one of those things is that because of this hyper visibility, people will tend to be like, if they don't see you everywhere, they're like, you ain't doing nothing. And it's like, well, maybe I was, and not everything should be for public consumption.
Yeah. Hello. How about that? That's real talk.
Masses.
Yeah. That's another real thing. Like, everything, you know, we're in this time where everything seems like it should be for public consumption, but some of this stuff, a lot of this stuff should not be for public consumption.
No, you know? Like you can't go on Twitter and be like, we're taking the building over tomorrow. Right. No, you're not. Because you just run yourself. And in fact, they're probably coming in your house right now.
Right now.
They're at the door already. But we do live, and I think this is a lot I've been thinking about. I've been reading this book. It's insanely long, called Surveillance Capitalism. And that's where we're at, right? You're talking about geotagging. You're talking, you know, they're about to pull the, like, if you don't have a vaccine card, they're going to try to implement something. They want to pass more domestic terrorist laws, which means, more abuse against Black and brown people, because you're really not going to use it for your boy, Thomas, Karen, you know, for not the police officer and all that. I do think people have to figure out other forms of communication and other ways, because at this point, there's nothing that we could do. Like, I'm always like, people on Signal will be like, get on Signal. I'm like, so you really think it's encrypted like that? Did Edward Snowden not show us that none of this is like, it's not.
Right.
And it's all about what's up, Signal, text messaging, and I get what we don't say, but I'm trying to understand why we do trust Signal and be like, no, you have in Black Lives Matter meetings, especially in LA, shut your phone off.
Yeah.
Who's in a box, it goes outside of the meeting place. That's one of the things that I learned from BLMLA, which I would have never thought about. I should have thought about when I was in Ferguson and seeing how they were running up on folks. But even Ferguson was almost 7 years ago. Right. Now you're talking about a complete surveillance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Rosa, I always am looking up and I'm like, I can't believe the time, how much time has gone by. But I just want to ask before we close, if there's anything, because I know like the film is out, and of course, please check it out. It's on HBO, Judas and the Black Messiah. It's fabulous. And then go further. You know what I'm saying? Like I always say to people, like go further, like see the film and then find some books, you know, read about the COINTELPRO and all those kind of things. So I don't know if there's anything else that you are doing or have coming up or you want to share, if you're going to be live, if you're going to be, you know, anything you want to share with folks.
No, I have to finish a dissertation or they're going to kick my program. You know, I've been telling a couple of my folks though, I needed to write it now because there has been so much movement and discussion around Afro, Black, Latino, Latinx people. I study us in the United States. Most people study Afro descendants outside the United States. One of the reasons I'm also focusing on the United States is that I also look at from a hip hop lens, particularly with African-American Puerto Ricans and those who created hip hop, right? Right. And that solidarity with African-American and Puerto Ricans, because we have the citizenship, but not treated like as third class citizens. But, you know, I'm like, oh, I need it now because even the last 2 years, even my evolution around like, I don't refer to myself as Latinx, but I understand the intervention. But I'm also at a point where in this work, I'm like, if you call anything Latino, Latina, Latinx, you already cutting out African and Black folks. So even, you know, I tell people, listen, you know, you identify how you want. I'm going to say I'm a Black Puerto Rican woman, but after I do this dissertation, I'm going to launch my new show, which I am calling Black Latinx narratives, because I always do believe that as again, a little older than the folks that are coming up with better language, that naming is something that we don't often get to do ourselves.
Yes, sure.
You know, so I'm always like, tell people, look, just because you don't agree with me doesn't mean that I don't respect how you identify. But I will question why you would always want to say you're like a white Latino. Why is that necessary? Like, why? Why is it necessary to always, as Latinx folks, have to say, oh, I'm 1/3 European, I'm 1/3 indigenous, I'm 1/3 African? Well, then so is everybody in the fucking world. Like, right. Like I can go to Mississippi right now and I can see all that. What really it is my intervention in it is you can talk about that culturally, but what it's not transferring to is a Black politic of freedom. And if we don't understand Pan-Africanism, we don't understand Schomburg, or we don't even understand people like a Lolita LeBron, who I'm sure just called herself Puerto Rican, but put her life on the line for struggle. To me, that's a struggle of Black freedom. And it's what people have said. When Black people are free, we'll all be free. Yes. So, and the last thing I would say, I want everybody to go to the Black Power Network. It just launched a couple weeks ago with Dr. Jared Ball, my homie, comrade for a long time, Kamal Franklin and Brother Kalanji down in Atlanta. And, you know, they're already shows. My old episodes of Disrupted Chaos will be there sometime next week, but also like shows like yours, you know. The one thing I want people to look at is they want us who are creating this type of media space and independent space to not, it doesn't mean you give up any of your autonomy. It
Right.
just says it's going to be a space where you can see shows
Right.
like this that ultimately are about power and freedom. So the Black Power Network has launched. So folks should check that out. Yeah.
All right. So the Black Power Network, y'all need to check that out. You need to check out that book, We Do This Till It Free Us.
So good. Yeah.
Yes, get that book. And I just want to put up, if you want to keep up with Rosa Clemente, you can follow her on IG. Look, you on IG, girl. You doing it. She's at Black Puerto Rican PhD on IG and on Twitter and Facebook at Rosa Clemente. And of course, rosaclemente.net. And please, follow her, support her, because you want to know when the books are out and the shows are on, you want to be in the know. And I thank you so much. Like, please, let's stay in touch. And I really am thankful for all the work you have done and continue to do. We need you. And I'm glad that you are here and doing that work. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, thank you for your show. I've been watching the other episodes. They are fantastic.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we have met somewhere at some party.
Oh, we have. Because you mentioned, like I said, you mentioned Malcolm X Grassroots. I know all the folks.
Right.
You talk about all the poets. I know Jessica. I know Talib. I know, you know what I'm saying? So I know it's like that. It's that Brooklyn, New York 90s thing that was happening.
Yeah.
But yes. And I was in the Bronx because, the point, you remember the point in the Bronx with, universities? Yeah. So I was up there doing, because I was in a poetry troupe called Black Lotus. So.
Okay. See, we did meet because I always was at the point, but we have met, and I'm grateful for this show. I'm glad you're doing it. It's very powerful. And thank you for your time and, for giving me this time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. So have a beautiful night. Rest, relax, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Take care, sis. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye. Good night. Oh, yes. I'm so excited. I'm so glad that was able to happen. I'm just going to do my plug now. Like, subscribe. If you were loving the interview, please go on to YouTube, like and subscribe, because we got to get those algorithms going. Before we close, it is Women's History Month. I told y'all last week, but nobody believed me. Well, I shouldn't say nobody believed me, but I told y'all last week that a friend or, one of the folks that watches the show, they were like, Shelley, maybe people want to know about you. Like, maybe people want to know who you are and have more information. So I'm doing this just for this month. You can email me at punannypolitixxtv@gmail.com and ask me a question. Now, don't get all wild out there. Like, don't be asking me no wild things because I'm still going to vet the questions. But for just this month, if you have any questions for me, you want to know about my music career, you want to know about my poetry, I don't know, things that, I don't know, make it nice and I'll answer. That's all I'm going to say. But before we close, again, it's Women's History Month. I just wanted to shout out because, like I said, Coming to America is on. As soon as I get off here, I think I'm going to turn on my Amazon Prime and check it out. But the person that I want to lift up in the spirit of coming to America is this sister right here, Ruth Carter. So if you're not sure who Ruth E. Carter is, she is a costume designer. And I'm sure most people probably know she's the first African-American woman to win an Academy Award for the costume design that she did for this film, Black Panther. So I was just excited. I was like, we can show both the royal families because there is our folks from Wakanda and there are our folks from Zamunda. So she also did the costumes for Coming to America. And did I not print out? You know what? I had all this stuff printed out, and I think I did not print out all her stuff. But I'm just going to show you. There she is. There's some more costumes from the show. From the film, I should say. I'm very excited. There she is with Eddie. And so just in case you're not sure about Ruth, also she was nominated for an Academy Award for the work she did on Malcolm X for costume design. There's Denzel and Spike, and also for Amistad for what she did there. And Ruth Carter, I had written out all her stuff, but Ruth Carter, basically name a Spike Lee movie and she did the costume design. Like that's where she got her start. But again, like she's done like 60 films. Again, first African-American woman to win an Academy Award for costume design. She's fabulous, 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 fabulous. So I just want to give, on this Women's History Month, a shout out to Ruth Carter. And also, because we are talking about Zamunda, and as the flag is behind me, I just want to give a shout out to Madge Sinclair. So there's the royal family from the original Coming to America. And Madge Sinclair, she, of course, was, the queen. And she has since passed away. She died, I believe, in 1995 after a 13-year battle with leukemia. So she, of course, is not in the film now. I'm sure that they will address that. But Madge Sinclair, like I remember her from Trapper John MD. Like that is like my original really remembrance of her. But she was in Cornbread Earl and Me. She was in Roots, the original. She also came back and was in Queen. But she did so much TV and film. She was a really beautiful Jamaican American sister. So all my love, rest in power to Madge Sinclair on this, new beginnings or I guess the final chapter maybe of Coming to America. I just wanted to shout out Madge Sinclair. And on that note, I think we're at the close. I just want to say, of course, next week, I am excited to have Sebene Selassie on the show. She is a author and Buddhist teacher, somebody that I have sat and meditated with many, many times, and it happens to be my neighbor as well. I'm really excited. She has a book out called You Belong, and we'll be talking about that around being Black and Buddhist. So I'm very excited about that. Also, if you want to support the show, support. As I always say, we're here, and I know YouTube seems like it's free, but it's not. Nothing is free to make all these things happen. I mean, YouTube might be free, but all the rest of the things are not. So if you can support the show, you can CashApp ShelleyNicole7. You can Venmo at SN Jefferson. I thank you for all your donations. Help to, keep the lights on, keep the stream flowing, all that kind of good stuff. That's why I say keep the stream flowing. And I'm super excited about next week. So, I think that is it. We've had a serious show tonight. So again, thank you for tuning in. Tell a friend, like and subscribe. We're at IG again and Twitter at Punanny Politixxx TV. We're on the Blackbush YouTube channel and on the Blackbush Facebook page. I'm going to Zamunda for real. Right now. Y'all have a good night. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you. Good night, y'all. When you recognize